segue into how I think of microdosing and one simple visual here. So shifting your perspective in 90 days is a 4-step, very basic framework. But as human beings, we can really mess it up because we are so used to going, producing, and we want instant gratification, and we just want to feel better, aka the big pharma model. Take this pill, call me tomorrow, you should feel better. Next thing you know, you're dependent on Xanax or SSRIs for the last 2 decades. So it's very easy to comprehend logically, but when it comes down to doing it, it can be somewhat of a challenge. So microdosing really kind of blasts through all of the things that we really know to be true. And that is, you actually have to do the work, right? Microdosing doesn't have to work. You have to work. Capital letters Y-O-U. You have to work. So to shift your perspective in 90 days, I'll get to the 90 days here in a little bit. The 4-step framework in a positive feedback loop, right, is intention plus introspection multiplied by frequency plus consistency equals transformation. So that's the way I think of microdosing. Of course, you can do 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And I'm sure some of you have the question, why 90 days and what happens after 90 days? So I'll drop in a little bit about why 90 days. And this is a good time for me to introduce myself and who I am. My name is Brian Martello Chaplin. I'm the founder of Medicine Box and Try Mind's Eye by Medicine Box. Clearly a human being, someone that has overcome a lot of my own obstacles in life, mainly with drugs and alcohol. I was admitted to the hospital when I was, just after I was 30 years old. A suicide attempt. I overdosed on alcohol and pills. Alcohol and stimulants like cocaine were my drugs of choice. I started drinking when I was 14 years old. I blacked out when I drank the first time. My dad, I love very much, said, I hope you don't do that again, Brian. When he saw me just with this crippling hangover the next day. And that was like the coolest thing that I've ever experienced, right? You think that would stop someone from ever doing that again, like really like erasing 6 hours of your night because you were blacked out. And I did that for the next 18 years of my life, everybody. Crazy stuff, just living a very chaotic life, thinking that it was all about sex, drugs, rock and roll, and more and more and more and more, and consuming, and really acting out a lot of my own traumas from childhood and bringing more trauma onto myself. And when I was 32 years old, so I did that for 18 years of my life. Actually, in 30 days from now, on September 9th, I will have 11 years of consistent sobriety from drugs, harmful drugs, and alcohol. And it's like, well, okay, this guy's sober, but he's talking about psilocybin. I don't even think of it as California sobriety, everybody. Psilocybin, psychedelics, and especially medicines from the earth, they're plants, they're allies, they're here to help us, and they are here to uncover the psychological wounds that we have wrapped ourselves in and compounded, right? I think of the psychological trauma as compounded layers of bedrock, right? Someone mentioned that taking psilocybin in nature is a great combination. I couldn't agree more, right? So when we're out there in nature and we are, on the influence and and our options are a little bit opened, and the veil into the other ground from one tree stand, the trunk of the tree as you get lower to the ground, because it's allocating its resources to stretch tall and be in the light, right? So as humans, we can allocate our resources. And here's the paradoxical thing about psychedelics, and maybe some of you can agree here, or if someone wants to add to this, I would love it. It's all about your psychological work in service to your spiritual development. So it's not about spiritual development in service to psychological work, or for every psychological problem, there's a spiritual solution. I don't really like the word problem, everybody. Okay. So some of you might be coming here because you want some solutions, because you feel you have problems in your life. Okay. These are just obstacles that every human being faces. So this is a journey into self-awareness. Remember, there's no right way, wrong way, just a lot of different ways into self-awareness. And microdosing can really help with crafting self-awareness. But in order to get to self-awareness, we have to be able to start with intention. And setting intention helps us really open up the perceptual awareness. So now we have the awareness around, like, why do I do this? Why do I do that? Oh my goodness. Like, this is where that comes from. And we can start making shifts in our life. We can start making those radical changes, or you've heard the term neuroplasticity. I'm not going to get too much into the science around here because I don't want to. Okay. Neuroplasticity is nothing more than the window of opportunity, right? The ability to make the change. Or when you're driving on the highway and you hit the rumble strip on the side of the highway because you're texting at 80 miles an hour, or you're just drifting off because you're not paying real attention to what you're doing, the rumble strip pulls you back into awareness. That's what that's for, right? It slaps you into awareness so you can get back on the smooth single lane highway there. So think of the rumble strip of some of the ruts that we just put in our life, but we don't ever really slap ourselves back into awareness. Microdosing with this framework and staying frequent and consistent. Frequency is, someone asked about dosing and protocol. I think journey and what works for you, works for you. So there are some very straightforward, let's use the lack of a better word here so people know what I'm talking about or referring to, protocol. There is the Fadiman protocol, which is 1 day on of a microdose, 2 days off, 1 day on, 2 days off. So what we suggest in our 90-day journey is to actually start with the Fadiman protocol of 1 day on, 2 days off, to build the repetition or the consistency. And you're starting to pay attention to what you're doing. Okay. The 15-day marker, you can switch to the Staines protocol, which is 4 on 3 off. He did do 5 on 2 off. I would suggest not to do 5 on 2 off, or actually try doing 5 on 2 off, but pay attention to what is happening around that 3-day on marker. You might get irritable, restless, discontent, right? There is a true statement around too much of a good thing, right? Psilocybin works on your serotonin receptors, and we have too much serotonin going on, we deplete the serotonin. So that's why it's a nice, consistent, and frequent practice on that day on, 2 days off. So as long as you're taking 2-3 days off during the week, right, and have that window of opportunity to support the neuroplasticity that is happening. And then, of course, you can do all the behavioral exercises that are suggested. You can walk in nature, you can draw, you can journal. My favorite is playing music. And that's my second favorite. Actually, my all-time favorite is just sitting with the feeling of perceptual awareness and resisting the urge to do. Okay, so a lot of people want to microdose because they hear Silicon Valley is producing the next, billion-dollar unicorn company because they have hacked their brain to produce more, to focus more, and have high bouts of concentration to get more done. All you're doing is speeding up capitalism, right? How about we speed up our mindfulness and we can sit with ourselves and pay attention to what is going on in our internal environment as well as our external environment, completely free of judgment of self and just paying attention to what is going on within us. And that is how we cultivate change, everybody. And microdosing, I'm going to say this out loud because this is something I've been working on and doing some of my own journaling around, is like sped up mindfulness. I think of microdosing as a way to speed up mindfulness, really, and enhance and sharpen that intuitive wisdom that we all have. Every single human being, everyone on here has intuitive wisdom that we have somehow dampened or lost over time. And I wholeheartedly feel that everyone has access to that, but don't know how to access it. So sped up mindfulness. If you sit and meditate, I told my dad this, everybody, in the hospital, when he's in the hospital and he's loving his meditation group. I said, Dad, if you sit and meditate just 5 minutes a day, 7 days a week, that's 35 minutes a week. Ramp that up to 20 minutes a day. That's 140 minutes a week. Okay, you do 140 minutes a week, everybody, times 52 weeks in a year. That's 7,280 minutes divided by 60. That's 121 hours divided by 24. You just spent 5 days a year cultivating your intuitive wisdom. Think of that, right? That adds up over time. So if we can speed up our mindfulness and learn how to pay attention to our internal environment, to our thoughts, our emotions, our perceptions, and what is going on within us, and take a step aside, okay? Eckhart Tolle, the great spiritual teacher, I love this quote. I throw a little bit of my own lingo in there. He says, stop everything you're doing in your life and watch your life. So basically, stop the fucking things that you're doing in your life that are contributing to unhappiness and stress and anxiousness, and take a step aside and just observe it and watch it. Or Terence McKenna, right? The great, psychedelic explorer and philosopher of our time. He would say, sit down, shut up, and pay attention when he talks about meditation. So just sit down, shut the F up, and listen, like, to yourself, and give yourself that time. So microdosing can really help us with that sped up mindfulness. And thank you for letting me be able to talk about sped up mindfulness, because that is something that I've been working out, and I call it M&Ms, a microdose and meditation. And there's nothing better than that. So resist the urge to microdose and be like, okay, I'm going to clean my house. I'm going to, get that research paper done. I am going to bust out a bunch of work. There's nothing wrong with that. But just resist the urge to do that and sit with the feeling that microdose is giving you to do all of that. And then say, okay, I have that within me already to do that. So what is underneath, right? It's like this, you hear a lot of the term psychedelic explorer. We're exploring what is going on within us. So that is a little bit about the shift your perspective in 90 days. What happens after 90 days? After 90 days, we suggest, and most people I know would suggest, to take a break, a 30, 60-day period to just sit with the afterglow. okay, or the integration period, and spend some time free from any of these exogenous compounds or outside influence, and continue with your practices. And then it's up to you to be discerning if you want to start up again on another 30-day, 60-day, 90-day. We offer anyone that gets the 90-day, the bundle, after 90 days, we offer you a 20% off discount for a monthly subscription, where just if you're just a regular customer that comes in, that's 10% off. And we have plenty of people that are already on the monthly subscriptions. So that's just another value add there for putting in. It's a little bit of a reward for putting in all this time to better yourselves. And why 90 though? So when I went to the 12-step recovery program, that's how I entered into my journey of self-awareness. My neighbors happened to be sober, and they invited me to an AA meeting. When I walked over to their house the day before, barefoot, on a 3-day bender, in my board shorts, soaking wet because I was outside in the rain, and knocked on their door and said, I need help. And unbeknownst to me, they were 12-steppers, right? Talk about a miracle. And I went to my first AA meeting 2 days later, and they suggested that I just keep coming back. And then they suggested this weird thing, everybody. I still scratch my head about it. You need to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, Brian. 90 meetings in 90 days talking about the same old thing, right? The frequency plus consistency, the preamble. I don't know if anyone's done 12-step work, whether it's Al-Anon, AA, NA, CODA, any of those. But the preamble is you read the same 12 steps and you read the same 12 traditions. And a lot of times you talk about the same old shit. And I said, I've never done anything for more than 9 months consistently in my life, other than probably like shotgun beers and obsess about when I'm getting my next fix of drugs. But I took their suggestion and I went to 88 meetings in 90 days, and bam, 11 years later, here I am sitting with all of you, almost 11 years. And that 90-day period, it just beat it into my brain, right? The window of opportunity, neuroplasticity, it made the changes, okay? Everybody wants different, but no one's willing to change, okay? But nothing changes if nothing changes. These are some AA terms that I still use here. And it's just AA, everybody, for me, at one point was the only tool I had in my toolbox. Now it's just like in the corner of my toolbox. It's like the Swiss Army knife. I can always just use it and find something in there to apply to some other things that I'm doing. And the 90 meetings, or 88 and 90, really was a pivotal point in my personal development, my spiritual awakening, whatever you want to call it. Those are all just terms. I think just becoming a better human and having more self-awareness around why the hell was I like drinking to escape and using to escape and wreaking havoc on my life and other people's lives. So that period was pivotal. And that is why I suggest, from my own personal experience, if I can do it, you can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it. You just have to put in the work. And remember, microdosing doesn't have to work. You have to work. It is a tool. It is an ally. Okay. So that's a bit around my personal experience of why 90 works. But then also I mentioned the rhythms of nature. Okay. I'm a huge fan of nature. I've chosen to live my life in nature. I was an environmental studies major at the University of Vermont to learn about ecology, and the ecology of nature and the rhythms of nature and all of that. And 90 days is a solstice to an equinox to a solstice, okay? The change of seasons. And when we are paying attention in the rhythms of nature, we can really learn a lot from Mother Nature's teachings, right? We are just coming out of summer solstice. Days are starting to get a little bit shorter here, bummer. But we're coming into fall equinox harvest moon, and days are going to get even more shorter. Leaves are going to start turning and dropping and preparing for winter. And we should be doing the same thing. So leaves dropping, maybe we start dropping some responsibilities that we don't really need, or commitments that we've taken on because we feel we need to be filling up our time, and start looking at when can we drop off some of these things, where can we drop off some of these things, and prepare for the dormancy, right, to go inwards in the wintertime, or underground, really. Okay. And then come into the spring equinox in March and say, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm up. I'm here. I am. I'm going outside more, and I'm going to start setting some new intentions to plant my spiritual seeds for the future of the summer solstice and fall autumn equinox. So that's another connotation. I call it the philosophy of microdosing there. To be in that rhythms of nature, or some of you can think of it as a quarter, right? We as business owners, it's like Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, wrap our books, and Q4 prepare for the next year. So however you want to look at it, that way, no right way, wrong way, just a lot of different ways. Okay, cool. People are connecting. Yay. Melissa, the best dosage, 100 milligrams is a very standardized dose. That is 1/10 of a gram. Okay. There are 1,000. Let's do a little math. There are 1,000 milligrams in a gram. And if you're doing 90 days of dosing at 100 milligrams at, say, a day on, 2 days off, let's just, for easy math, say that is every other day in a 90-day period. Follow me here. We'll do some basic math. Every other day in a 90 period is 45 days. 45 days times 100 milligrams, that's your dose, is 4,500 or 4,500 milligrams divided by 1,000 milligrams, which is in a gram, equals 4.5 grams over 90 days. And this is kind of a cool experiment as well. Over 90 days, you are consuming 4.5 grams, somewhere around there, 4.5 grams of psilocybin, just stretched out over a very gradual process, the frequency in that consistent practice. Okay, that is somewhere smack in the middle of a macro dose or a hero dose, somewhere between 3 and 5 grams. So you're getting the equivalent of a hero dose just stretched out. So that's the another fun way of looking at how microdosing can be. You can invite microdosing into your life without really having to disrupt your life. And I say disrupt not in a negative way, but a way to microdose and still go about your daily business. You can be a mom, a spouse, a coworker, a friend. You can get the things you need to do done. You just have a bit more of a vibrant, amplified state of awareness doing it, and you're able to pay attention to what you're doing in your life while you're microdosing. Where like the macrodose journeys, you're preparing, you're pre-integrating, right? You're building yourself up to go into this really profound and oftentimes very life-changing experience, and then coming out of it on the other side, you have some solid integration work to do. So microdosing is just a great tool to be able to use in your observable reality of your daily life. And also it's a great to be able to use as I think of it as like a maintenance tool too. So a lot of people will do like I try to do maybe a macro twice a year. Some people I know do it once a quarter, once a year. Others do it once a weekend. I don't think you need to go that ham on it, but in between the hero doses, it's nice to have that maintenance of a microdose to keep you in that window of opportunity. So nice. 0.12, so that's 120. Yeah, 1.5 can be a little much, right? That can make me feel too emotional. And it's very much, yes, Crystal, great feedback there. So it is super important to pay attention. That's the paying attention part, right? Like listening to your body. And on that note, Crystal, you just sparked something there. So we've had some customers reach out, Brian or Sean, our customer service success ninja. The kids are still triggering me. Okay, I'm feeling tired. I'm exhausted all the time, and I'm feeling super emotional. It's not working. No, it actually is working, right? It's the opposite. It's like, awesome, it's working. The kids are triggering you even more. You're heightened. It's going to amplify. It's going to mirror what's already there. And that's, again, microdosing doesn't have to work. You have to work. So it's important to pay attention. Kids trigger us. People trigger us. Humans trigger us, right? I'm being triggered because there's cars driving by right now. However, it's important to, as Crystal said, listen to your body and pay attention to that stuff. So it is working. It's a great amplifier. Okay. So that's that sped up mindfulness. What do I need to look at? The inspector gadget of your own, with that big magnifying glass, right, of your own life, and look and go deeper and ask the question, why, right? Like, simply, if you've heard of compassionate inquiry, it's just why is this happening? Why? I'm going to go deeper. Why? Without judgment. Okay. Without attaching to the things that are happening to us. That doesn't mean they are us. There are things that are happening. So be that detective. Triggers provide opportunity for insight, as Crystal said. Absolutely. They're little beautiful morsels, whether you think they're beautiful or not, of information, little data pieces that we can take with us. I have mushrooms that have been ground into powder to put into capsules. Will that still weigh out the same, or should I weigh the mushrooms before they're ground? Great question. It's like the chicken before the egg, or the egg before the chicken. Definitely, in my experience, grind it up as fine as you can. You maybe use a mortar and pestle at first, just to get the macro pieces pulverized the best, and then a coffee grinder works super well, or like a Ninja blender. And a kitchen scale. If you can get a kitchen scale that weighs down to the milligram, that's the best. Okay. And then have fun with it. So again, that question is great. We sell capsules. We take all the guesswork out out of that for you. They're all titrated. They're all homogenized. Quality control. We make everything in super, super small batches to ensure quality insurance, and that we're getting the consistent, reliable, and titratable dose every single time. And also, after a while, it can be messy, it can be confusing, and not confusing, time consuming rather, to locate your own mushrooms, grind them up, weigh them out, put them in a capsule, and say, oh no, did I weigh that out? Okay, the difference between 1 decimal on a kitchen scale and in your capsule, yeah, you could have a fun journey there. I call it the oops, that was not a microdose. That's a forced vacation. So I wanted to share 2 more slides with you, everybody. And I really, these questions have been great. And this was, my intention here today was just to have questions and just chit chat a little bit, and not sure where the conversation was going to head. but this is just a really fun time in our world when we have access to these medicines or these tools, and we have a lot of keepers of knowledge that are willing to put it out there. I've been consuming psychedelics since I was 17 years old. I definitely didn't start using psychedelics therapeutically until probably 11 years ago in my sobriety. Okay, so Bill W., the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, took LSD for 7 straight years in the 50s, and niacin. He used niacin to help with his depression. That was an outside issue in AA. Just a little side note piece of history there. And that was when LSD was being used under a lot of research to help with curing a lot of ailments, and alcoholism as one of them. So I've been using psychedelics since I was in 12 steps, thanks to Bill for starting that wave. And there's also groups called Psychedelics in Recovery, where it's the 12-step format, but we're talking about our psychedelic experiences with psilocybin, LSD, ayahuasca, 5-MeO, DMT, and really getting to the root of the symptoms of why I'm drinking, why I'm using, where my neurosis is from, why I'm an anxious, depressed human being. So it's a great time to be alive, and that we can talk so openly. This was something that I kept very close to just myself and, a few other, people in my inner circle. And now it seems it's just like everyone's just jumping on, because why? The Western medical system is beep, 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 beep. That's me bleeping out all the terrible things I have to say about that. But there is a place for Western medicine, of course. And I think that's where science and spirituality, clinical protocol work needs to meet with, the journey work, as well as the indigenous medicine keepers and medicine makers. And we can all learn from each other. It's not one way or the other. So microdosing also challenges the very presumptions of science itself. That's why it's so misunderstood. Okay, that's why that protocol word is something that I refrain from saying. It's like, take this today, take this tomorrow, then do this the next day. That's probably why we're so rigid as a culture and so wound up because of that. So so a lot of what I've been talking about, I'm going to share my screen again. Can we see the could someone just drop and say, Jody, thank you. Please be in touch. There's the little brain in the cage there. Can you see that slide? No? Yes, thank you. So when I say you, this isn't directly personally at you. This is all of us. Okay? Some worse than others, some a little bit, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, Starbucks, right? All those little pesky habits that we have, right? Everyone's addicted to something, and everyone is recovering from something. Okay, you don't have to be addicted to drugs and alcohol to have addictions. Okay, it could be anything. It could be shopping, gambling, your thoughts. That's a big one. And in social media, prescription drugs, SSRIs, benzos, wasted money on talk therapy. Who's actually Googled for solutions? I'm curious. Has anyone just sat there and Googled like how to feel better? Why do I feel like this? Like, what's the cure for depression? What's the cure for this? Like, I'm raising my hand. I'll be the first one to say, like, I've spent time Googling for solutions, because why? Like we want the instant fix, the quick fix, instant gratification instead of diving in and actually doing the work. Hopelessness, confusion, lack of faith. Okay. Um, Finding meaning, everybody, is really paramount to discovering the objective of the goal of happiness. Okay. The objective is finding meaning. The goal is happiness. And confusion. We live in a very confused world. Okay. Confusion, lack of information, lack of sound community, um, emotional, spiritual, mental support. Those in a bucket all combined, that is really those are the three main categories that create anxiety. And then add on to that like a lack of meaning, okay, and hopelessness that the world is the way it is, and we're not going to get out of here. Well, no one's getting out of here alive, so we might as well just accept it, right? With radical acceptance, okay? I always say the world is a fucked up place, but you don't have to be. And the world is beautiful at the same time it's messed up. That is the duality of the yin and yang, and the light and dark, and sunlight and moonlight. It just is, okay? Opinions of others, bad advice, self will run riot. We're all affected by all of this, okay? The collective society, the three forces plaguing us. And it creates the monkey mind, right? The mind in a cage, rattling around, right? Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Bob Marley, okay? And then here's, the M&M that I talked about, microdosing and meditation, or microdosing and mindfulness. That's sped up mindfulness, microdosing, community and mentorship. So this community and mentorship here, everybody, whether you jump on the calendar and we have a chit chat, or you explore the 90-day journey, the bundle, which includes that call, join the free community. There's a classroom section in there. In the classroom, there's a lot of discussions that I've had with some other people in the field. One of them might still be on this call, Dr. Erica Zelflin. We talked about psychedelics and recovery and the work that she does up in Oregon with the homeless population and the addiction population up there. And she's doing some really, really wonderful work, taking her her clinical background in functional medicine and applying psychedelics to that. And we had a wonderful conversation. That's probably about a year ago, I think. That's on there. There's some other presentations I've done, and just some really cool free information to keep learning about this wonderful practice and the philosophy behind it. Quiet contemplation, we talked about that. Tracking progress with the micro tracker. A healthy diet. Okay, part of the 90-day journey back to you is we incorporate a 36 plant-based recipe book. I call it the Food for Thought recipe book. The Food for Feeling wheel is on there, and to really start learning about like the different foods that we can consume to help contribute to our emotional well-being. And I had a functional nutritionist design those recipes for us, and all the ingredients used are all carefully chosen to help benefit cognitive health. So now you can see how things are stacking. It's not just the capsule that we created that is a stack, but when you start stacking these other behaviors and practices on with the microdosing, you're going to get an exponential benefit out of that. And letting go your past, who can still be driven by the ghosts of her past, or enamored by the fantasies and fears of her future. It's like a tug of war, and when we're in a tug of war like that, we are out of the present moment. And then journaling, time in nature, some people brought that up already. I call this the engage and filter method. So by stacking all these practices together, and engaging with them, and then filtering out the stuff that's not working, right? Filter out, allocating our resources. We can become this human with the key inside our brain, or our mind rather, and opening it up to a renewed relationship with the present moment, clarity of purpose, awareness, innate wisdom, motivation, and focus. And again, I'll say it for maybe the fourth time, microdosing doesn't have to work. You have to work. And that's how we get there, everybody. So